2023 to be a year of significant declines in inflation, and it's actually our job to make sure that that's the case. But I would tell you that, with inflation,
Hello,
headline,
welcome to
PCE inflation
Financial
is running
Stockholm.
about 5%.
Today is
This on
Friday,
12
March
month
3rd,
basis, core
and I'm Christopher Crystal. It's March 3rd, 2023, and these are our views of what we're seeing here in the Swedish markets. None of this is to be considered investment advice, but perhaps a way you could talk to your investment advisor about different issues, and if you were looking into Europe and what to look at. Of course, our focus is on the Nordics. And all of the notes to this you can find on our Substack, and some of the links may be also found, the links in the description. So with that, this has been a relatively quiet week for us here in Sweden in terms of business. What we're looking at more is about the politics, and we're mourning the loss of the way of the Swedish lifestyle. There was a 10-year-old girl that was stabbed in Gothenburg yesterday by a man who has had previous engagements with the police. He's been arrested on drugs and violence and robbery and so forth. He was an older individual, and he's really somebody who probably should have been either in a mental institution or in prison. And and then we had another man who was shot in his house or apartment in southern part of Stockholm, and apparently his son was involved in gang criminality or gang crimes, and the father supposedly has no connection to the gang world, but his son grew up in it and shot him. And then we've had things like earlier in the week there was somebody who was found stabbed on a stairwell in the subway in the southern part of Stockholm. We've had a number of shootings, and so the Swedish lifestyle of safety and calm is being lost. And this is being used by the political parties to discuss what's happening and what our policies should be regarding immigrants and the criminality, what the penalties should be with the prison terms and so forth. And none of it's really reaching forward to a positive conclusion. It's just really more the arguing and the finger pointing about, well, you guys did this and you guys did that. And you said this, and he said that, and she said this. So it's really kind of going back and forth. And you're even seeing in the articles a discussion about if the world today would be different if Donald Trump was president. And that was an article earlier in the week. And it's really one of these ridiculous articles because it's just, first of all, Trump's not president, so who cares? And second of all, during his presidency, he didn't engage in any new wars, in any new conflicts. What he did was send missiles over to Syria. He kept us out of engaging into Syria. They left troops there in Syria. So really kind of like, it's a stupid question, but it's really an issue to drive between the Swedish populace about the politics, because many of the right side party would be more closely aligned with, say, Trump. And on the left, they would be more closely aligned with the Democratic National Party in the United States. So, it's just an argument there. But remember, Trump, when he was president, he flew all the way to North Korea and stepped on the North Korean soil. This is the first time an American president's done that. So what would it be like if Trump was president today? It's maybe like a dumb question to ask in the Swedish press, because I think maybe focusing more on what's going on in Sweden would be a better idea. And and that brings us back to what's happening with the Swedish society. And for instance, this poor little girl being stabbed in Gothenburg, and the number of people being shot, explosions happening, because Swedish culture is being lost. When I grew up, Sweden was known as a neutral nation. And you could go through the history and you could argue how neutral was Sweden during certain conflicts and so forth and so on. But the point is that Sweden is no longer neutral. Sweden is joining NATO. And the only problem Sweden has with what's going on with Ukraine is the potential that the United States may back away from supporting NATO. How would the United States do that? If the Republicans were to win the Senate, and if the Republicans were to win the White House, and if they would continue to control the House of Representatives. That's what's being asked in the Swedish press. And that's really kind of again, a moot point, because at 120 billion in 1 year, the United States cannot continue spending at that rate. So at some point, the European initiative has to take over. And we've already seen that in terms of, you had 2 or 3 weeks ago already, NATO talking about the ammunition and the rate of expenditure of the ammunition for Ukraine, and how much the NATO nations have to step up their pace and start providing more ammunition. We saw that again this week. And Sweden is sending more weaponry. And we're also sending our Patriot batteries and so forth, because the new Patriot batteries coming from the United States would take something like 2 years. Russia has already amped up their war machine. So, they can fire thousands of munitions a day. So the real question that Sweden should be asking about its identity is, does it want to become a warmonger, or would it like to continue to be conflict afraid? Having an argument in Sweden meant somebody wouldn't talk to you the next time they saw you, because they just didn't want to have the argument, or didn't want to have the discussion that could potentially cause an argument. So there is a loss of Swedish identity, and possibly evolving into back towards more like the Viking culture, or more like the Gustav Vasa, who was responsible for the bankruptcy of the Hanseatic League and his loans and ventures in Poland and Germany. There is definitely a question about the Swedish identity and where it's going. And I think really people should be looking at it more questioningly about which way do we want to go. And then you also see the press focusing on the current government, and this is really just the press being a campaign tool for the government parties. The left is clearly the one in favor by the press, and they would like to see that the left come back into power. So although the new coalition government has been in place for less than 200 days, you see people asking questions like, well, which voting promises have they broken? Well, the end of the term hasn't come, and it's only been 200 days. So you can't fix everything in a day, and nor can you fix it in 200. Some of it's going to take a while. And yes, promising to pay back the electrical support by the 1st of November would be a broken promise, because we only got that payment this week. So yes, and some people got it last week. Yes, there would be a broken promise there. But more importantly, by the end of the term, have they delivered on the promises? And we haven't seen that, because we're not at the end of the term. So that's really what the focus is. And I think more what the focus should be, instead of these Novus surveys talking about the political parties that are growing or fading, the focus should really be more on the industry, and really more of our energy and what is the government doing to help us with this. Because our balance of trade figures came in today, and with the balance of trade, we saw a decline of 15 billion. And so we've gone to kind of the worst balance of trade that we've been at for quite some time. Now, I haven't gone through the figures, so I don't know how much of it's oil and how much of it's pharmaceutical, or how much of it's the refined petroleums. It's hard to say, but in general, the Swedish economy is in bad shape. There is more in expectation of people being evicted from their houses, and the Swedish household is looking at a very, very bad situation in terms of cost and spending and availability to purchase goods. So we're looking at some dire program initiatives coming from the government. We already saw that from the finance minister yesterday or this week when she came out and gave the press conference. So and classically, what's happening? Well, Ericsson's going up because in 2019 it looked like they were going to get $1 billion sanction, and now the Southern District of New York is saying only a 206 or 260 million. I think it's $206 million fine. So 206 is better than $1 billion, but to me, hey, you're still paying 200. But I guess the expectations were that it was only going to be $1 billion. And then you see gaming stocks going up in the Swedish market. And you see people talking about wind power. Wind power would be a quick solution on the energy issues. So, remember, you can always make money in the market, whether you're going short, whether you're going long, if you're playing with options, or you're a short-term trader or a long-term trader, there is always money to be made. And that's why you need to speak to your investment advisor to figure out your strategy and what you're doing. So with that, hopefully you're subscribed, and we look forward to seeing you again on Monday. And thank you very much for your time. Bye-bye.